golden rule itself, what it is, then talk about the current loop, then go into more about the Buffalo events, and then talk some about the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, and then ways that people can help and
What,
get more involved.
when's Jerry going to talk based on his time schedule?
Everybody's ready if you're ready.
Especially in the beginning, which
Good.
is when
Great.
what I described.
Okay.
Okay, so do I have the link yet?
I can send you the link right now.
Thanks. Yeah,
You want it through text as we usually
please.
do?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Thanks.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Don't
Hang on to
swear.
your hats.
Stop
Oh yeah,
swearing,
that's one
people.
thing to remember. Is actually no
Will there
because
be a bleep censor?
well we would have to go back in and find it and then
Oh, dear.
and then
All right.
and then omit, which it has happened in the
Talk
past.
like a
I would
sailor,
say.
huh?
Yeah, no,
Watch
none
that,
of
huh?
that. None of that, right?
I'm gonna steal a pen.
Yeah, so there's just so you see, there's things if you want to write a note or you have any kind of a little thing you need to remember to say or mention or something.
I had a good friend who was a generation ahead of me, but he was a Marine, landed on Okinawa in World War II, but when he'd get mad, he would just slip, and then he'd say, "Sorry." That's my Marine language. Sorry.
Okay, Facebook is getting ready to give me the link.
Wonderful. Okay.
Okay, Facebook has given me the link. I'm going to now text it to you.
Great.
Chris,
Oh, do I have the
do you work on
clapper?
Okay, it's-
making boats?
Do I have the clapper?
Fixing boats.
Isn't it there anymore, or did somebody move it again?
Oh, it's over here by Tom.
Okay, you now
Thanks.
have
I
the
have it.
link.
Okay, good. Great. Thank you. We're almost ready to roll. So,
My nephew's been
And-
a skipper for big sailboats all his life.
here,
Cool.
here. And
Which means
Okay.
he basically works with very wealthy people who can
Yeah.
afford to hire a staff. He's
Okay.
the captain.
okay, so that should be going. Yep, it is.
Okay, you ready to start?
We're ready.
Okay, you see where the countdown is on the screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you know where to click it when it says on the air.
Okay. Okay. Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being recorded here at Think Twice Radio in the home of the future, also the home of our friend and producer, Richard Wicca. Thanks, Richard. And thank you, our friends at WBNY, Buffalo's original alternative radio station out at Buff State. Thank you, Buff State. And when I think of Thanksgiving, I do think of our indigenous friends on whose land we are right now, the Haudenosaunee, the Seneca in particular, where we are. And they start every event and every day out with Thanksgiving, giving thanks to our Mother, the Earth, for providing everything we need for the creation, for having a good life here in this world and on this earth, for all the wonderful plants, the medicinal and the nutritional plants of all kinds, and the creatures of all kinds, crawling, flying, four-legged, and swimming creatures, and of course for the water, which water is life, and for all the beautiful formations, and for the air and the winds, and for the Creator, and for the love that really makes it all happen, for the Creator And then after they've thanked for all those things and then some, then they would say Nyahweh, and then the people say no. So Nyahweh.
No.
No.
Thank you, thank you. So we have a very special show today, and we're getting ready for a visit by Jerry Condon and the Golden Rule. So the Golden Rule, the iconic Golden Rule ship, and we'll talk some more about that. But first, I just want to introduce our guests, and then we'll talk a little bit about values and about this wonderful visit that we're going to have going on. So I just did introduce Jerry Condon. Jerry is the former board chair for Veterans for Peace and is the current president of the Golden Rule Committee. Am I saying it right, Jerry? All
Yes.
the things? Yeah, well, we're so grateful that you're on and all the work, wonderful work that you're all doing, and to be part of it. So thanks for coming on. And
Great to be here.
it's great to have you on Zoom. Of course, you're still en route, not in Buffalo yet. Then we do have Tom Casey is here. Tom is associated with Pax Christi, Western New York, as well as Veterans for Peace associate member, and of course the Western New York Peace Center. So a very busy guy and on the planning committee. So thanks for coming, Tom.
Glad to be here.
And we have Chris Appleton. Chris, hi, Chris.
Hi.
And Chris, as we were just talking before the show of the serendipity of running into Chris, who is a former skipper on the Golden Rule, who's living in Buffalo, working in Buffalo, and part of our preparation, together with the Western New York Peace Center and the Veterans for Peace to make it all happen here in Buffalo.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming. And last
Former
but
and future skipper, we hope.
oh, good.
Oh, boy.
Yes, good. Yeah.
Roping me in.
Yeah, there you go. Sounds good. we could get some. Speaking of volunteers, I don't know if you might be thinking about volunteering on the cruise sometime.
Should be
Samaria.
great. Young person. Could-
Yeah, Samaria Mbili, who just graduated from Canisius College fairly recently, who is studying studied international relations. And certainly, this is very related to all of that.
Definitely.
And of course, part of the Western New York Peace Center, too.
Yes.
So we're grateful. Thank
Maria
you.
would be very welcome on the crew of the Golden Rule for a day, a week, or a month.
I
A
figured.
month, or maybe a day.
See? Yeah, maybe a day.
Oh, no.
I don't know if I'm seasick because I haven't.
Well, we'll see. We'll try you out. We'll have an opportunity to do that. So anyway, before we do that, though, if we could just go around and really, when we think of the Golden Rule, which is this iconic anti-nuclear peace ship, really, sailing ship, and all of the issues that we're trying to deal with for a nuclear-free future, or to even have a future. It means it needs to be a nuclear-free future. If we could just do a little go-round on sort of what are the values that we think of that make us work on this, make us excited about this, et cetera. So I would ask Tom for what's a value, one or two values
No,
quickly that you...
That's easy. A safe world for our children. And a reallocation of our resources away from military spending to humanitarian spending.
Wonderful. Those are two great values. Jerry, what would you think of for values?
Well, the Golden Rule is named after kind of an ultimate value, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Or as my partner and project manager Helen Jacquard likes to say, don't bomb others as you would not want them to bomb you.
Exactly. There you go. Wonderful. That is so great. Thank you, Jerry. So, Samaria, what would you say?
I mean, I was gonna say just as because when I hear the Golden Rule, I think of that same.
Yeah.
It's literally written. If you go to the United Nations, it has the Golden Rule and do unto others as you have them do unto you.
Wow.
So I would have to mimic him in saying that. And also just diplomacy and, initiating talks instead of fighting. I think
Yes.
That's a value.
Yeah, that's why something, maybe that's going to be some of your future work Could be. Sounds like it. Anyway, and Chris, what would you say?
I'll just repeat the slogan you see at climate protests. Another world is possible.
Right.
And, we need it more than ever now. So, and that's, to me, what the boat represents.
Right. Right. Certainly does. Well, I often fall back on this one, or these two, I should say, which is Dr. King talked about. He said unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. And I very much think of the golden rule in terms of unarmed truth about the disarming, disarmament, especially nuclear disarmament and general disarmament, as Tom was saying. And just the truth of the matter. So not with all the excuses, not with all the pretending or ignoring. And then unconditional love, which is what a labor of love that you're doing by doing this great loop, and what we're all doing. That activism, real activism, takes that great love for, caring for others and caring to make that other world possible. Using our diplomacy to have, and that's the love that makes us just keep going till we get there, and we're gonna keep going and get there.
Yeah.
So anyway,
We like to
go ahead.
we like to say that we're sailing for a nuclear-free world and a peaceful, sustainable future.
Yes. Amen. 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 Ashe. Anyway, so Jerry, I want to skip over to you to just say, if you want to talk a little bit or a lot, just about, the golden rule, the history, how it got started, and how you got into doing this trip.
Okay, well, it's a big story.
It is.
I'll try to keep it. I'll give you the short version.
Sure.
In
And then
1958,
Mhm.
4 Quaker peace activists, led by a retired World War II Navy commander, attempted to sail this little 34-foot ketch from Los Angeles to the Marshall Islands. That's a 4,000-mile voyage across the Pacific Ocean, to directly interfere with U.S. nuclear testing that was going on there. Between 1945 and 1958, the U.S. exploded 67 nuclear devices,
Wow.
nuclear bombs in the Marshall Islands. So these folks, these Quakers, were part of a larger movement, nonviolence movement, basically pretty much from the northeastern U.S. War Resisters League, anti-nuclear activists, Quakers, and others who were trying to stop the development of nuclear weapons, and particularly trying to bring attention to the problem with the radiation that was floating all over the globe, because it wasn't just the U.S. that was testing nuclear bombs in the atmosphere, also the U.K. and the Soviet Union and France. Anyway, they protested for quite a while, and they did everything they could to bring attention to this issue and to try to get the White House and the Congress to take action. No progress. So they decided to do something bold. They got this boat, and so they sailed it, and they got as far about halfway there, stopped in Honolulu, Hawaii, for resupply, and then when they headed out, they got pulled back in by the Coast Guard. Now they had highly publicized their intentions, so this was well known what they were up to. They were actually stopped. They made several attempts to leave Hawaii, headed for the Marshall Islands, and they were stopped and pulled back to Hawaii and thrown in jail and went on trial. A second boat, the Phoenix of Hiroshima, serendipitously arrived in the Honolulu harbor at the same time, and just docked 2 slips down from them. Was captained by, it's called the Phoenix of Hiroshima. The captain, Dr. Earl Reynolds, had been studying the effects of radiation on children in Hiroshima. His research was classified so high that he couldn't get access to it himself. And he was pretty upset and frustrated, but he was sailing around the world in a sailboat with his family, including two teenage kids and a cat, and uh, and two Hiroshima, two men from Hiroshima, one of
Mm-hmm.
whom's brother had been killed in the Hiroshima explosion. So they were so inspired by the courage of these men putting their lives on the line for what they believed in, that they decided they would sail into the nuclear test zone. So they actually managed to do so, and they were stopped by the Navy, and he was arrested and brought back to Hawaii for trial. He was on trial for 2 years.
Wow.
So they ended up bringing worldwide attention to this whole issue. I mean, Dr. Benjamin Spock and others were making a lot of noise at that time also, because this strontium 90 that was floating around the globe was getting into babies' teeth and bones and mother's milk and cow's milk.
Mm-hmm.
And some women were actually testing their milk with the Geiger counter before they'd feed it to their babies. So there was a lot of concern. They helped amplify this concern and build support for the 1963 Partial Test Ban Treaty that was signed by President Kennedy and the leaders of the UK and the USSR. And that they banned, they made it illegal to test nuclear weapons in the air, underwater, or in space, but they allowed it to continue underground. And so, and by the way, the action of the Golden Rule at that time actually inspired Greenpeace to get their very first boat, and
Right.
they sailed it into up to from Vancouver, British Columbia, up to Alaska to try to stop U.S. underground nuclear testing. That was in I think, 1971,
Mm-hmm.
something like
Mm-hmm.
that. Um, at any rate,
Hmm.
the boat was shortly after the trial in 1958. The boat Golden Rule was sold into private hands, and several different families owned it over the years, sailed it in the South Pacific, the Caribbean, and various other places around the world. Somehow or other, it ended up in way northern California in Humboldt Bay, not far from the Oregon border. And in 2010, a derelict boat with a gaping hole in the side that actually sank in a gale, was pulled out of the water, and it was such a wreck that they were just going to make a bonfire out of it before somebody looked up what's this Golden Rule,
Mm-hmm.
and they found out this whole history. So
Wow.
Veterans for Peace chapter in the Humboldt Bay area, Northern California, um, decided they wanted to rebuild the boat, to restore the boat, and also to restore its mission of sailing for a nuclear-free world. So they convinced the boat owner to allow them to have a year in his boatyard. Actually, it took 5 years of
Mm-hmm.
volunteer effort,
Mm-hmm.
and some of those volunteers were there every day for 5 years,
Wow.
lovingly restoring this actually very beautiful wooden boat and its mission. And in 2015, June of 2015, it splashed down back into the water and started sailing up and down the west coast of the United States, although actually up into British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, California, down to Baja, Mexico, holding multiple events, appearing in wooden boat shows, um, getting in the way of at Fleet Week actions by the U.S. Navy in Seattle and Portland and San Francisco and at Los Angeles and San Diego, going down to Baja, Mexico to take our deported veterans out sailing. And then eventually we actually decided to take it back to the Pacific, and we sailed it to Hawaii again,
Mm-hmm.
from San Diego to Hilo on the Big Island of Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
That was a 21-day voyage across the ocean,
Wow.
and it's no small thing to do in a little boat with an open cockpit.
Sure.
It's old style and a tiller.
Mm-hmm.
It's old style. There's no super comforts.
Right.
Although we did benefit from navigation devices that didn't exist in 1958.
Mm-hmm.
And then we sailed. We were in Hawaii and islands for almost 2 years. Visited virtually every Hawaiian island. Had many events there. Learned about the impact of the U.S. military bases there in Hawaii on the environment and very negative, destructive impact, as well as on the indigenous Hawaiian culture. We learned a lot while we were there. Our intention was then to proceed on to the Marshall Islands, where the boat was initially headed for in 1958. Finally
Right.
get to the Marshall Islands, we thought.
Right.
And then on to Guam and Okinawa and Japan. We
Sure.
wanted to be in Hiroshima for the August 2020 75th anniversary celebration, or
Sure.
commemoration is a better word, I
Right.
guess,
Of course.
of the U.S. bombings of the civilian populations of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Um, but right about the time we were prepared to depart from Hawaii in March 2020, COVID hit, and it
Right.
hit everywhere. And all these islands, nations shut down. They weren't going to allow any boats or visitors at that point in time. That's part of the reason we ended up staying in Hawaii for as long as we did. Finally, we decided to bring the boat back home to California,
Right.
and that was a month-long voyage. That's a longer, more difficult trip to come back from Hawaii than to sail to Hawaii. And that was the captain there, Captain Kiko Johnson Kitazawa, is our current captain right now, who brought us back. And once we got back, we said, well, what are we going to do next? And so we decided we should fulfill the vision of the people who put the boat back together, the Veterans for Peace members, the Quakers, and others. And
Right.
their vision was to sail all throughout the navigable waterways of the United States, educating the people who needed it most right here in the United States about the
Right.
growing threat of nuclear war and the importance of abolishing nuclear weapons. And in support of the treaty, the UN Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which passed in July 2017 by a vote of 122 to 1 in the UN General Assembly, and went into effect in January 2021, I believe it was.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And after it had been ratified by 50 countries, it's now been ratified by 68 countries and counting. So nuclear weapons are now illegal.
Right.
Um, the possession of them, the building of them, the transporting of them, the use of them, certainly, or the threat to use them. But that only applies to countries who sign the treaty. And so far, neither the U.S. nor any of the other 8 nuclear armed nations have done so. So at any rate, we did start sailing again we decided to sail around the Great Loop of the eastern United States. So we transported the boat last September by truck from San Francisco Bay to Hudson, Wisconsin, which is quite close to Minneapolis, Minnesota. And that's where we started our voyage. And we sailed down the Mississippi, having events in many, many cities along the way. Eventually, the drought and the low water level forced us to abandon the Mississippi. We couldn't go all the way down it. South of St. Louis, we ducked into the Ohio River, the Tennessee River, the Tom Bigby River, and down to Mobile, Alabama. Chris was with us for a good part of that time, as I recall. And then we went to Pensacola, Tampa, and Key West, Florida. And when we realized a little bit earlier that we were going to be in Key West at the end of December, we said, well, why not go to Cuba?
Of course.
We almost had a nuclear war
Right.
because of the so-called Cuba Missile Crisis in 1962. So we did go to Cuba, and that was a wonderful experience for all of us. Chris was was there with us. He might want to tell you some about that
Yes.
later.
Mm-hmm.
We came back from Cuba to Miami. We've come all the way up the East Coast, once again, stopping in many cities along the way, holding educational events, press conferences, and taking people out sailing on the boat. Uh, Oftentimes stopping at places where they're like Kings Bay, Georgia, where there's a
Right.
Trident submarines are based,
Hmm.
and other nuclear facilities, both nuclear power facilities and nuclear facilities, and U.S. bases where there's great pollution uh,
Hmm.
and happening, and waterways are being polluted. So it's been an incredible educational experience for us, but also for the people along the way. And we did make it up into the Potomac River. We went to
Mm-hmm.
Washington D.C.
Mm-hmm.
We distributed the Veterans for Peace Nuclear Posture Review to every single congressional office. We
Wonderful.
went to
Wow.
Yeah.
we went to Baltimore and Philadelphia, and New York City was amazing. We had meetings at the United Nations with the 13 different UN missions,
Wow.
and including a very special meeting with the ambassador to the Marshall Islands.
Wow.
And
Yes.
Oh,
then
that's
we
great.
then we sailed all the way up the New England coast as far as Portland and Bath, Maine,
Mm-hmm.
um, fairly recently. Came back down to New York, ducked into the Hudson, and came up the Hudson
Right.
into the Erie
Right.
Oh,
Canal
boat's on the move, huh?
Yes.
and
Yes. Yes.
the Oswego Canal, and well, here we are in Oswego. And soon we'll
Wow.
be really tomorrow we're heading for Rochester, New
Right.
York, and then
Right.
we'll be going over to Ontario to visit Toronto and Hamilton, and I think maybe St. Catharines before coming back to our most important stop of all, of course, Buffalo, New York.
Well, on this radio show, yeah.
Yeah.
So now,
And I just to say,
sure.
just to finish, so
Yeah. Yeah.
we're 10 months in, we're 10 months into a about 12 and a half month 11,000-mile voyage that takes us to over 100 cities. We'll be ending up in Chicago in
Mm-hmm.
mid-September. And then
Mid-September.
probably we're having a meeting tonight to make some decisions about this, but we're probably going to put the boat back on a truck and take her back to California
Mm-hmm.
to get ready for whatever comes next.
Uh-huh. I bet you have a few ideas. I can think of a few that you might think
Oh
of.
my God.
It does sound wonderful. I do have one question before I want to ask Chris about a little bit more about Cuba and that part of the trip. But before we do, now Oswego, isn't there a nuclear reactor near there? Because there's
believe
I think there's 11. If I am recalling correctly, there's like 11 different nuclear power stations around Lake Ontario.
Mhm.
There's
I
quite a
believe
few of
there
them.
is. I believe there is one closer to here,
Mm-hmm.
and but I can't say I know too much about it, I'm afraid.
Sure. No, well, anyway, so I'm just glad you're there in Oswego, safe and sound, and all that work that you've done and all that. Oh, learning, sharing, and teaching, and emphasizing, and Chris, how was it? The part that you, how did you find your way onto it, and then how did you continue on?
To the
that part
Golden
of it?
Rule?
To the Golden Rule.
Oh
yeah.
I donated. I found the an article about the boat on Common Dreams
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4 years ago,
Right.
and I donated some money. I sent a little email to Helen
Uh huh.
Jacquard,
Right.
and at the time I was planning on doing the Great Loop in my boat.
Ah.
And I said, this will be great. We'll buddy boat down the Mississippi together. And COVID hit. And my boat wasn't ready, so I never went. And then Helen said, oh, you're a sailor and you're a
Oh.
captain. So why don't you come to California and help us out? So I could at the time, and so I did. And I spent the winter going up and down the California coast with the boat. We went from Eureka down to Ensenada, Mexico, and then back up to San Francisco. That's where the boat was trucked from.
Right.
And then this past winter, That's when I'm kind of laid off from my job.
Right.
So I met the boat in Tampa.
Uh-huh.
We sailed it down to I helped sail it to Key West, and then helped again take it to Havana.
And what kind of reception? And I mean, actually, I was privileged to be on a Pastors for Peace trip to Cuba, which there's one going on right now, which we
That's
have.
right.
We have a wonderful young person who's there. Kelly Camacho is there right now with Pastors for Peace.
Yeah.
But if you could tell a little bit about how it was to be in Cuba and how the people
It
received
was
you all.
great. I had no idea what to expect. I think, I have to say, I guess I'm a victim of the brainwash a little bit. I
Right.
kind of expected a little that we would be followed
Mm-hmm.
and sort of surveilled by the Cuban government, which totally wasn't the case, of course.
Right.
And it was a blast.
Of course.
And there's like dancing in the streets like
Sure.
every day.
And they love you.
And it
did,
was just great. And it was really, really fun and really educational.
and did
Yeah.
they love you all?
Oh, yeah.
Of course they did.
Of course they did.
Of
Yeah,
course
it
they
was
did.
great. It was just phenomenal. It was a great experience.
They
yeah.
just want to end the blockade. They've suffered so much,
Yeah.
and also get the rest of their land back when we have Guantanamo down there. And,
Right.
back to the golden rule, right? It comes full circle. So the
That's
golden
right.
rule of what we do to Cuba, what do we, what are we
Yeah.
thinking?
Sure.
Yeah. So, so I'm very excited, of course, about our trip, about the trip in general, and all the wonderful work you've done, including at the UN. Maybe we can come back to that. But I want to talk before you go, even to help remind you about some of the things that are going to be going on here when you come here, because we may not be your most important, but we will certainly be one of your greatest fans, I think, when you're here. Because it's just so exciting that you're going to be coming in, and we just very excited. So maybe if I turn it over to Tom, if you want to tell a little bit about the schedule. And of course, I do want to say before we even start, you can write things down as much as you want, and you're more than welcome to do that, of course. You're also welcome to go to wnypeace.org, where it's all laid out, the schedule of events, where they are, how, when to find them, where to find them. And we're excited. So, Tom?
I think the most important thing is what Vicki just said. Please go to wnypeacecenter.org
Not center. wnypeace.org.
and listen to Vicki, not me.
It's just,
And-
that's the website, wnypeace.org.
And once you get there, it's listed in their upcoming events or features right on the home page. It gives you a list of all the events. That's by far the most important thing. Please go to that site. Please then pick out some time. Obviously, you can come to all the events if you want, but I doubt if most people can. Pick out a couple events just to come and support these amazing human beings who, many of whom experienced war firsthand, who have dedicated their lives to making a better world for our children. But with that, I'll just briefly say, the events start before the boat arrives on Saturday the 29th. And at Buffalo State at 9 a.m., room 160, there'll be a poster-making get-together. Followed by Women in Black, which have been at the corner of Bidwell and Elmwood for many, many, many years to
About 20,
to protest
21 maybe.
wars.
Wow.
Sunday,
Yeah.
there's a couple of major events. Sunday 1 is 6:30, Buffalo State.
PM.
Again, PM. PM! I don't know how many people show up at AM. Tech 160, the room. There'll be a lot of signs once you get there directing you to where to go. And that's going to be a forum of some local people who have some just in-depth experience in both nuclear weapons, nuclear energy, and also waste disposal, where our Cattaraugus Indian Reservation has been the victim of that not too far from us.
Right.
So I think you find that very interesting if you can make it to that at 6:30 Sunday, July 31st. While that's ongoing, the Golden Rule will actually arrive. And it's probably going to arrive we don't know. 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So when they arrive, we'll be live streaming it over to the event at Buffalo State. Monday, press conference, 10 o'clock, Canal Side. We've got proclamations from both our county executive and from our mayor welcoming and complimenting and supporting the Golden Rule and their staff.
That's great.
1 o'clock, Canal Side. Have a community gathering. It's going to be more some events for children. It's go from 1 to 5. From 3 to 5, there'll be some focused events on drumming, some music, and also what I have forgotten to mention all along this, we hope at the Sunday night meeting, Mark Colville will be there.
He will be there.
Mark is
Yeah.
just an another incredible human being, deeply spiritual, deeply courageous. He was one of the Kings Bay Plowshare 7 who were arrested for breaking into that Trident submarine base at Kings Bay that Jerry mentioned, and then symbolically turning weapons into peaceful instruments. 7 o'clock that night, the Ninth Ward, which most of us know as Bayville, they have 3 bands, and we're going to have fun, and the crew's going to be there.
Right. Right.
Tuesday, we're going to be back at Buff State, and we're going to all along be inviting people who want to work on next steps that we can do locally to bring about our country's leading disarmament and participating with the nuclear ban that the UN has promulgated. And then lastly, Tuesday morning at 8 a.m., anybody who wants to show up, we're going to have a kayak flotilla at Canal Side sending the Golden Rule off on their way to Dunkirk.
Right. Well, and one thing I'd add after the planning session
That's
is
Wednesday morning, right?
Wednesday.
that's
Yes.
Wednesday, August 2nd. Yeah, when you're leaving. But the day before, we also heard that there might be an opportunity for some people to get a ride, is what I understood, on in the afternoon.
That's a strong possibility.
Yeah.
We love to take people out for rides.
Well, I bet people are going to love to be on it. Now,
Conditions allowing. Yes, we can find out how Samaria is gonna handle
Right.
this.
Just for
We'll
just
teach
for
her the
that.
ropes.
just for that. So Samaria, I want to ask you too. What made you interested in this, and what do you think is important about this? Why are you interested in, or what
Well,
makes you interested?
I first started. Well, I'm the past president of Peace Action, so I know
Canisius
Peace
College.
Action, the chapter
Right.
in Canisius College, and Peace Action is actually founded off of nuclear proliferation and banning nuclear weapons. So
Right.
it kind of was just being the president. I had to learn more about it, and then my junior year of college, I did more research on the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which is different from the Treaty of Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. But the main thing I learned about the Non-Proliferation Treaty is how, the U.S. is stopping other developing countries from proliferating and building up nuclear energy, but the U.S. itself is not complying with its own standards that it signed off on.
Right.
So that's how I feel. I feel like the U.S. should be, as a world leader, we should be standing
Right.
against saying like nuclear weapons is illegal, period.
Right.
But I think our leaders are not showing up. So we have to be the voices that say enough is enough and have hope that, one day that, that
Right.
it won't be a nuclear catastrophe.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and the fact that it is illegal now due to the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, that's over 2 years now that it is illegal. So the U.S. is a, renegade. We have not only do we have more nuclear weapons than anyone else, but we're doing a whole new generation of nuclear weapons to a huge, I used to know what was the figure of how many, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars
2
per
trillion.
minute.
Billions,
All per
trillions.
minute.
It was per minute, but it's trillions for sure. Trillions that they're planning to spend instead
Well,
of
the current modernization program is estimated to cost $2 trillion
right,
over the next 30 years.
right. But in the meanwhile,
God.
somewhere I saw how much it was a
But that
minute.
number
Somebody
has
can
doubled
figure it out.
in just a couple of years. It might double again.
Sure, right.
Yeah.
Just a crazy.
And we have these SALT treaties that are
Right.
supposed to stop Russia and the U.S. from trying to build up their nuclear arsenal, but I don't think they're really abiding by them at all.
And they're not renewing them.
Yeah.
Too. Things are falling off, and then they're not getting renewed. So I'm so glad that you said diplomacy. You know, so that's why I was saying, well, maybe over time, that may be something, because, I mean, that's what the UN is for, is so that those things can be negotiated and trenched back. Right now, we're in more danger of nuclear war than we've ever been with what's going on in Ukraine. And so I'm excited about what's coming, and about your all's coming and all the events that we're going to have. But we're also excited about that planning session that we're having on Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
So Tuesday is going to be a big day as well, because of the planning session, and then also certainly the opportunity to get on that blessed boat will be a very big one, a very, 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 what a joy that will be. But if we'd like to maybe go around once and just each of us a little bit on sort of what you see as some of the important points for people to understand about the nuclear dangers. So I guess we'll go to you, Tom, and we'll just go around this as a circle.
Yeah,
So, Tom?
I'll be brief. Daniel Ellsberg finished a book 2 or 3 years ago called The Doomsday Machine, and he was actually a nuclear planner. He had served in Vietnam as a soldier. He then went into intelligence. He actually was one of the people planning a nuclear war. And he eventually realized it was beyond absurd, and he
Right.
wrote an entire book saying what we are doing, thinking that a nuclear war is winnable, is insane. And he wrote that book. The Kings Bay Plowshares 7, when they broke into the Kings Bay Plowshares Trident base, left a copy of that book. I don't know if anybody read it there, but they were hoping they would get some attention.
Right.
So I think that's the most important thing. I'll let other people talk. There has been in past, we've been so close to a nuclear war, and
Right.
it always happens accidentally. We had no idea that the Cuban submarines were nuclear armed, and they almost fired their weapons. Thank God for, I wish I could pronounce his name. The Russians called him, when he died, the man who saved the world. He overruled the two boat captains. He was the fleet commander and said, your decision to fire is not going to take place. We're not going to fire.
Well, hallelujah.
So we need to work on this. I'm excited some areas here because we need a lot of young people to start working on
Right.
this. So
Yes.
with that, I'll pass it on.
So, Jerry, what would you tell
Yes,
us?
well, we are actually in a really, really critically dangerous moment
Yes.
right now. And many of the experts are saying that the danger of nuclear war is greater now even than it was in 1962 during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Right.
And we have an ever-escalating war in Ukraine that's really to a large extent, a proxy war between the two largest nuclear powers, superpowers.
Right.
So it's an incredibly dangerous situation. No matter what you think about that war, and there's a whole lot of different opinions about it, I think it's important that we all agree that it must end as soon as possible. And the only way it's going to end is through a ceasefire and negotiations. Veterans for Peace is part of the Peace in Ukraine coalition, and that's what we're calling for: ceasefire and negotiations, not more cluster bombs
Right.
and depleted uranium weapons
Mm,
and F-16s and maybe even U.S. and NATO troops. We have to stop this escalation
right.
and get down to negotiating for a real peace. So that's, I think, is a very immediate concern that we should all share and act upon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jerry. Samaria?
Yeah, I think that the war in Ukraine has definitely had people on like the edge of their seat. Like imagine if Ukraine did have nuclear weapons, where would we be standing now?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Wow.
I don't want to sound like an end time theologian.
No, no. Go ahead.
But
Mhm.
if the world was supposed to end by fire, I mean, it might just be nuclear weapons. So the world could end from nuclear weapons, and that's
Mhm.
like, I mean,
Right.
we wouldn't have any other generation except ours. So we have to fight for the coming generations to come.
Right. You're
Yes.
so right.
Yes.
You're so right. Thank you, Samaria. Samaria. And Chris.
I'll just ditto, ditto what everybody said. I
Right.
mean, I think it's, especially with the boat coming here,
Mm-hmm.
and just my own involvement in getting to know you people, you people, and everyone
Yeah.
attached
No, we're
to the
grateful.
boat.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I think it's easy to get hopeless, and to just to throw your hands up and not do anything, and that is the one takeaway that I've gotten, from my involvement with the boat is that I'm not insane. I'm not totally isolated. There's other people that are seeing the problems, and that we have to do something about it.
Right.
Like the sooner the better.
Right.
And
Right.
and the boat is such a great symbol of that. So let's do it, right?
It is a wonderful symbol of that. And I'm going to say, well, there are things that give me hope. The boat is one of them. The tenacity, the courage, the just smarts too of how to get the world's attention and try and get the world's attention, which is just such a challenge. The Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons gives me hope because 68 other countries, and a majority to make it legal, have stood up and said, as Claire Grady, another one of the Kings Bay Plowshares activists, said, that the rest of the world is sick of having, a gun to the head.
Mm-hmm.
So that is current. It is happening all the time, and not to mention, which I will mention, the nuclear waste, as Tom was talking about.
Yeah.
We have West Valley over here, with Cattaraugus Creek, with nuclear, they're taking it down, and there's leaking and people getting cancer. Why do we have Roswell Park here? Because of all the nuclear waste we have, and up in Tuscarora Reservation,
Oh,
also
yeah.
Niagara Falls
Niagara
as well,
County, yeah.
from the Manhattan Project, which was all about the bombs, and then not to mention that every nuclear plant is a potential nuclear bomb. So anybody who thinks, that that's some help, there's nothing clean about nuclear energy because it has the worst, most toxic, most lethal, residue, and it's just
Yeah,
very
byproduct,
existence, byproduct. We have no idea what to do, anything we can do about it, and we haven't had all these years. So, so the fact that there are people fighting for that, we'll have Shannon Shenandoah, who is an expert on that, who's going to be speaking, both on. I'm not sure. I'm not sure she's going to be there on Sunday night, but she's definitely going to be there at the press conference and give us a full scoop on that. As of course you will be, Jerry and Helen and others from
Yeah.
the ship.
Well, you're definitely
Go ahead.
right about the Golden Rule Peace Boat brings hope. That's the way that most people respond to it, very powerfully so. We have an award-winning film about the boat. It's called Making Waves: The Rebirth of the Golden Rule.
Right.
The 25-minute documentary film. I hope we'll have a chance to show it at one of the events in Buffalo. But even if not, or even if so, it's available free for a download from our website, VFP, that's for Veterans for Peace, VFPGoldenRule.org. And there's also a shorter 10-minute version of it. They're both very good and useful. Of course, the 25-minute version has more in it, interviews with a lot of veterans who are on board the boat. Very powerful, and it's a great teaching tool. So I recommend that people go to VFPGoldenRule.org and download that film for free and share it with your friends.
We have actually shown it in Buffalo, and I think we're showing it on Sunday night again, although I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember.
It is.
We are?
We'll be showing it Sunday night.
Sunday, that's what I thought.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
so
Great.
we'll be showing it. But meanwhile, go ahead and see it again, because I've seen it twice now, I think, and I could still watch it again.
I've seen it 300 times, and I'm not tired of it yet.
It
So
must be a really good one.
And Jerry's in it.
Oh, boy.
maybe
Okay.
that's why.
Now wait, so I know you may be going off, leaving us pretty soon. So I want us to just go around, and maybe we can even let you off the hook. Because I know you have an important meeting that you need to get ready for. But we're going to go around. So I want people to have a chance to share some last thoughts or some closing thoughts. Let's call them. So Jerry, what would you want to share with people?
Well, I'm just so grateful for you and all of you on this panel here, and for all the supporters. We get thanked a lot. We get thanked profusely, but it's amazing the way that communities have responded to us, and communities have come together, and we like to say, you are the wind in our sails, and we're really looking forward to coming to Buffalo and sharing all these great events with you.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Thank you so very much.
Thanks,
We're gonna
Jerry.
See you
Good to see you.
at Canal Side at Sunday
See you
night,
soon.
Monday. We'll see you.
We're going to see you Saturday. So
Oh, Saturday. You said you're coming on Saturday for the poster
Yeah.
making? Maybe the poster
Actually,
making. I don't wanna put the
I might
pressure.
even be there a few days before then.
Oh, okay.
But I'll let you
Great.
know.
Let us know.
great.
Let us know. Wonderful. Well, we're so looking forward. Thank you so much for making time to come on this show.
Tell Helen we said hello.
Yes, please. Thank her for
Thank
all
you.
her hard work.
And the guys on the boat. And the girls.
Yeah. Everybody.
Guys and gals.
And the fish
Yeah.
and the
Okay.
fish that are swimming alongside. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, and the dog. Did you hear? See
Oh,
we
and the
saved
dog.
the other day.
Oh, we want to see your dog.
There's a dog on board?
No, we saved the dog. There was a dog that was swimming desperately in
Oh,
the
boy.
Tobago spillway,
Oh,
and
boy.
it was not going to make it.
Oh, thank you for
we were
saving
able
the
to scoop
dog.
it up, and
Of course
and
you
then
did.
got a human interest story, or a dog interest story, you
Yeah.
could say, published in the local Oswego News.
We love our
That's
dogs.
great.
Thanks,
Wow.
Jillian, for all your wonderful work. Thank you so much, Jerry.
That's good.
Okay, thanks
We'll
so much.
see
I got to
you.
run.
We'll see you soon.
Bye, Jerry.
Bye.
Bye.
So as he will leave, we have about enough time for just a couple thoughts, a couple minutes even, of people's thoughts about what we need to remember, or what you'd like people to know, or how people can help. I want to actually say that part of how people can help is a big one too. So if we go round, let's go to you first, Tom.
Yeah, somebody has to remind people for the veterans to do this, it takes money.
Sure.
So
Right.
we will be passing the hat at each one of our events, asking for contributions.
Right.
Or you can go write to vfpgoldenrule.org and make a donation online right there.
Sure.
They work on an incredibly minimal budget, but this doesn't happen for free.
Right.
I mean, and their time is just the amount of time they put in is immeasurable. So
Right.
that's my thought. Go to VFP, Golden Rule, and go to the West New York Peace Center webpage, and find out about it. Come out and see what you can do to support. And we'd love to see anyone who's listening to us join us on that Tuesday morning for a planning session for what we're going to do next. Some of the things we're considering are going to City Council and doing what a number of other City Councils have done, asking our City Council to pass a resolution and conveying it to our New York senators and congressmen, asking our country to join the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Waste.
Nuclear weapons.
Weapons, yes.
Well,
Weapons.
waste
Thank you.
too. The waste too. We always want to
Right.
get rid of that, but we don't have an easy answer there. But thank you, Tom. Yeah, that's all true. And by the way, on that, the VFP Golden Rule, there's also all kinds of information, more information about the trip, the stops, the history. There's a whole books written on it and everything. But thank you also about the donation piece, which is very big as well. So, Chris,
Oh, my
what
turn?
would you? Yeah, what would you?
My
with people.
final words would be show up at Canal Side. It's July 30th. That's a Sunday. And then the Monday, August 1st, the boat will be there. Tuesday, August 2nd, the boat will be there and both of those days, I think there'll be boat rides. It's at Canal Side again, and then Wednesday the boat leaves, and we have the send-off with the kayakers.
Right.
So show up. It's at Canal Side, July 30th, August 1st, August 2nd, and August 3rd.
Right. And July 30th, if people come, there's the Buff State panel that's going on, you know, at Buff
Yes.
State College. I don't remember the new room number offhand, but it is, I think that you probably have it. But even if you don't, it is on the Western New York Peace
Yep.
Center website, the room number.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say if you're there on Canal Side with me, I think I'm going to be there live streaming. That's what we just talked about right before we started. But if other people, if you want to come in and see that part of it, you're welcome to see that. Although we're going to have some great speakers at that panel discussion
Yeah.
and showing that movie too. Yes.
I think one thing to mention is we have no idea when the boat's going to get here.
That's the other,
One of the former captains sitting next to me, Chris, made us aware of the fact, which sort of blew our mind, that it takes 10 hours to get through the Welland Canal.
Right.
They'll be coming from St. Catharines, and depending on the weather,
well, that's
they're not going to get in till late. So we're recommending to people to go to Buff State.
Right. That's really
Because
okay.
we don't know what time they'll get in. We hope we can live stream it.
Sure. So that's a great point. So it really is better off to go to Buff State, and then but we'll be at Canal Side really, almost all day on Monday, and then the evening and at the Ninth Ward. So Samaria, what would you say to people?
I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna tell all my brothers and sisters. 'Cause
Uh-huh. Oh, good.
I come from a family of like four siblings. 5 siblings, including me. So I'm gonna make sure that they're all there.
Oh, good.
And I'm gonna make sure that they are educated about this, and they're gonna be voices. And I also just want people to like what Tom you said, reach out to their county legislators and on the congressional level or the state level. Just remember that we have that power to be activists in that way, write letters or schedule a meeting. So that is open for you. We live in a democracy, and our voices should be heard at every level.
Absolutely.
And
so all of that is so important. What were you going to say?
Well, I just think that it's weird to me that we're doing all this at Canal Side next to the military park.
Oh, right. Yes.
You know, and
We'll see it the whole.
and that could be kind of a, I don't know. It just feels like that might be a confrontation that we ought to think about. You know, like why are we I mean, is that military park just simply glorifying the military for the sake of the military? Really? Is that a wise thing for our society to be doing? You know, that would be something to think about.
Well, it makes me think about, first of all, we've had a good conversation or two with some of the senior people there at times. But, you know, it takes a lot for people like
Yeah.
to be a whistleblower or to go against the grain. This is why I was
Yeah.
going to say along with what you said about talking with your friends, your neighbors, your family, other people as far as nuclear, people have just sort of forgotten about it. Young kids, you know, we had the time of hiding under the desks like as if that was
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
help anything. But it's ridiculous.
She doesn't-
But
she
people
doesn't-
were aware. People are not aware at this point, and children are certainly not aware. And it's not about freaking them out, but it is about they need to understand what's going on. So I want to say I am so grateful for that Jerry came on, that you've all come on. There's just so much, and it really does give me hope, you know, because you just never know. Things happen and change.
Yeah.
That we were just saying, you know, in mysterious ways that you would never imagine. And also, we're running out of time. As Dr. King said, there is such a thing as too late. So we need to, you know, it's a spiritual struggle. So we can just keep on with it, and we're going to keep on with it. And with you who are listening, we hope that you'll join us because we have to do it together. It's going to take all of us. So this is Talking Peace, and together we've been talking peace in truth and love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so very